He appeared on screen like a ghost from another era, a young man whose face seemed to hold centuries of longing and pain, yet he was barely out of his teenage years. With cheekbones that could cut glass and eyes that spoke volumes without uttering a word, he captivated audiences and critics alike, becoming the most unexpected Hollywood sensation of his generation. His rise was not the typical story of an overnight discovery or a lucky break. It was a carefully crafted journey of an artist who understood his craft deeply, who chose roles that challenged and terrified him, and who refused to follow the conventional path to stardom. This is the entire story of Timothée Chalamet, a tale of artistic integrity meeting commercial success, of a young man who became the face of a new kind of leading man, and of how one actor redefined what it meant to be a movie star in the 21st century. Timothée Chalamet was born on December 27, 1995, in the heart of Manhattan, New York City, a place where art and culture breathed through every street corner. His birth into a family deeply connected to the arts would shape every aspect of his future. His mother, Nicole Flender, was a real estate broker and former Broadway dancer who had performed with her heart and soul before transitioning to a different career. His father, Mark Chalamet, was an editor for UNICEF and a correspondent for Le Parisien, bringing a journalistic and international perspective to the household. This combination of artistic passion and intellectual curiosity created an environment where creativity was not just encouraged, but expected. Timothée grew up in a bilingual household where French and English were spoken interchangeably, giving him a cultural fluidity that would later become one of his greatest assets as an actor. His paternal grandmother lived in France, and the family would visit regularly, immersing young Timothée in French culture, language, and sensibility. These trips to France were not just vacations but educations in a different way of life, a different way of seeing the world, and a different relationship with art and cinema. French culture, with its reverence for film as high art rather than mere entertainment, seeped into his consciousness from an early age. Growing up in Manhattan meant that Timothée was surrounded by theater, museums, galleries, and endless cultural opportunities. His mother's background in dance meant that performance was always present in their home. His older sister, Pauline Chalamet, who would later become an actress herself, shared in this artistic atmosphere. Chalamet household was one where discussions about films, plays, books, and ideas were commonplace at the dinner table. This was not a family that simply consumed entertainment, but one that analyzed it, discussed it, and understood it as a vital part of human expression. Timothée attended PS 87 William T. Sherman School on the Upper West Side, a public elementary school that reflected the diversity and energy of New York City. Even as a young child, he showed an interest in performance, participating in school plays and finding joy in embodying different characters. His early education was not in some exclusive private institution, but in the public school system, giving him exposure to children from all backgrounds and walks of life. This grounding in real-world diversity would later inform his ability to connect with characters from different social classes and circumstances. When it came time for middle school, Timothée auditioned for and was accepted into the prestigious LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts, the famous institution that had inspired the television show and movie fame. Getting into LaGuardia was highly competitive, requiring auditions and demonstrated talent, and acceptance was a significant achievement. LaGuardia had produced numerous successful actors, musicians, and artists, and its reputation for rigorous training and high standards was legendary. For Timothée, being accepted into LaGuardia meant entering a world where everyone was talented, everyone was driven, and everyone was serious about their craft. At LaGuardia, Timothée immersed himself in acting training, studying everything from classical theater to modern techniques, voice work to movement, script analysis to character development. School demanded excellence and pushed its students to their limits. Timothée was surrounded by other young people who were equally passionate about performance, creating an environment of healthy competition and mutual inspiration. He participated in numerous school productions, taking on challenging roles that stretched his abilities and forced him to confront his limitations. These years were formative, teaching him discipline, technique, and the seriousness required to pursue acting as a true profession rather than a hobby. During his time at LaGuardia, Timothée also began auditioning for professional work. The world of young actors in New York was competitive and often brutal, with countless talented kids vying for limited roles in commercials, television shows, and films. Timothée landed small roles here and there, appearing in commercials and minor television parts that gave him his first tastes of professional sets and real-world acting experience. These early jobs were not glamorous or particularly memorable, but they taught him how sets operated, how to take direction, how to hit marks, and how to deliver performances under pressure and time constraints. He appeared in an episode of the long-running police procedural Law and Order in 2009, playing a young murder victim in a brief flashback scene. While the role was tiny and forgettable to most viewers, for Timothée it was a significant milestone, his first credit on a major television production. He also appeared in several short films and student productions, constantly working on his craft and building experience. What distinguished Timothée from many other young actors was his seriousness of purpose. He was not pursuing acting because he wanted fame or attention, but because he genuinely loved the art form and was fascinated by the process of inhabiting other lives and perspectives. After graduating from LaGuardia in 2013, Timothée faced a significant decision about his future. He had been accepted to Columbia University, one of the most prestigious academic institutions in the world, where he could pursue a traditional education. Columbia represented security, intellectual rigor, and a pathway to numerous career options. However, Timothée's heart was pulling him toward full commitment to acting. After much consideration, he enrolled at Columbia, but lasted only 1 year before making the difficult decision to leave and focus entirely on his acting career. The decision to leave Columbia was not made lightly. It represented a gamble, a choice to pursue an incredibly uncertain career path over the stability and prestige of an Ivy League degree. His parents, while supportive, must have had concerns about their son abandoning traditional education for the notoriously difficult world of professional acting. Timothée felt that he could not fully commit to his craft while also pursuing demanding academic studies. He transferred to the Gallatin School of Individualized Study at New York University, a program that allowed for more flexibility and focus on his specific interests. But even this arrangement proved temporary as professional opportunities began to emerge. During this period, Timothée auditioned relentlessly for roles in film and television. The rejection was constant and often demoralizing. He would prepare extensively for auditions, pour everything into his readings, and then hear nothing back or receive polite rejections. The entertainment industry was filled with talented young actors, and breaking through required not just ability but luck, timing, and persistence. Timothée supported himself through these lean years with the small amounts he earned from minor roles and likely with help from his family. Money was tight and the future was uncertain. He landed a small recurring role on the critically acclaimed Showtime series, Homeland, in 2012, playing Finn Walden, the vice president's son who becomes involved in a hit-and-run incident. The role gave him more substantial material to work with than his previous brief appearances, and he appeared in multiple episodes across the show's second and third seasons. Working on Homeland exposed him to high-level television production and allowed him to work alongside experienced actors like Claire Danes and Damian Lewis. The role was solid work, but it was not the breakthrough he needed. When his character was written out of the show, Timothée was back to auditioning and searching for his next opportunity. In 2015, Timothée auditioned for a role in an independent film being directed by Luca Guadagnino, an Italian director known for his visually stunning and emotionally complex films. The project was called Call Me by Your Name, based on the acclaimed novel by Andrea Simon, and it told the story of a 17-year-old boy named Elio who spends a summer in Italy and falls in love with Oliver, a graduate student who comes to stay with his family. The role of Elio required an actor who could convey intense emotion, intellectual depth, sexual awakening, and heartbreaking vulnerability, all while making it feel authentic and lived in rather than performed. The audition process was extensive, with Guadagnino seeing numerous young actors for the part. When Timothée read for the role, something clicked. He understood Elio instinctively, connecting with the character's intellectualism, his passion, his confusion, and his yearning. Guadagnino saw in Timothée not just technical skill, but a raw emotional availability that was rare and precious. The director took a chance on the relatively unknown actor, casting him in what would become the defining role of his career. Armie Hammer was cast as Oliver, and the two actors would need to create believable chemistry and intimacy for the film to work. Filming took place in Italy during the summer of 2016, primarily in the Lombardy region, with the gorgeous Italian countryside providing a sun-drenched backdrop for this intimate story. The production was small and independent, without the resources or pressures of a major studio film. This intimate atmosphere allowed for deep exploration of the characters and their relationship. Guadagnino encouraged improvisation and emotional honesty, creating an environment where the actors could be vulnerable and take risks. Timothée threw himself into the role completely, learning to play piano for the film, speaking Italian, French, and English, and accessing emotional depths that were both exhilarating and terrifying. The performance that Timothée delivered was nothing short of extraordinary. He made every moment feel real, from Elio's initial attraction and confusion to his passionate surrender to love to his devastating heartbreak when the relationship ended. There were scenes of pure joy, scenes of sexual discovery handled with taste and honesty, and scenes of emotional devastation that left audiences shattered. The final shot of the film, a several-minute close-up of Elio's face as he processes the end of the relationship while sitting in front of a fireplace, became iconic. Timothée's face registered every emotion, every thought, every moment of pain and memory, all without speaking a single word. It was acting at its purest and most powerful. Call Me by Your Name premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2017 to rapturous acclaim. Critics immediately recognized that they were witnessing something special, both in the film itself and in Timothée's performance. Buzz coming out of Sundance was extraordinary, with many predicting that Timothée would become a major star and receive awards recognition. The film was picked up for wider distribution by Sony Pictures Classics and began a slow rollout through film festivals and limited releases designed to build word of mouth and awards momentum. When the film opened in theaters in November 2017, it became a cultural phenomenon. Audiences responded to the beauty, the emotion, and the honesty of the story. Young people especially connected with the film, seeing in it a representation of first love and desire that felt authentic rather than sanitized or sensationalized. Timothée became the face of the film, appearing in countless interviews, magazine covers, and promotional appearances. His intelligence, thoughtfulness, and genuine nature in interviews won over journalists and audiences alike. He spoke eloquently about the film, about the responsibility of representing LGBTQ stories with respect and honesty, and about his own journey as an actor. The awards recognition came swiftly and impressively. Timothée received nominations from nearly every major organization, including the Golden Globes, the Screen Actors Guild, the BAFTAs, and most significantly, the Academy Awards. At just 22 years old, he became the third youngest person ever nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor, a category typically dominated by much older performers with decades of experience. Being nominated for an Oscar at such a young age for his first major leading role was virtually unprecedented and marked him immediately as a generational talent. Night of the Oscars ceremony in March 2018 was surreal for Timothée. Walking the red carpet wearing a striking white Berluti suit with a custom harness, he made fashion headlines and demonstrated a willingness to take risks with his image that would become a trademark. Though he did not win the Oscar, losing to Gary Oldman for his performance in Darkest Hour, the nomination alone had transformed his career completely. He was no longer a struggling actor hoping for his next job. He was now one of the most sought-after young actors in Hollywood, with scripts and offers pouring in from every direction. What happened next distinguished Timothée from many actors who achieve sudden fame. Rather than accepting every big-budget blockbuster or commercial project offered to him, he remained selective and thoughtful about the roles he chose. He understood that the choices he made in the immediate aftermath of his breakthrough would define his career trajectory for years to come. Many young actors in his position would have immediately signed on to superhero franchises or generic action films that offered huge paychecks but little artistic fulfillment. Timothée chose a different path. He accepted a role in Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig's directorial debut that premiered at film festivals around the same time as Call Me by Your Name. Playing Kyle, a pretentious but ultimately insecure high school boyfriend, Timothée showed his range and willingness to play flawed, even unlikable characters. The role was smaller than his part in Call Me by Your Name, but the film was wonderful, and working with Gerwig and co-star Saoirse Ronan was an opportunity to collaborate with serious artists making meaningful work. Lady Bird became both a critical and commercial success, and Timothée's performance added another dimension to his growing reputation. He then chose to work with acclaimed French director Xavier Dolan on The King. Wait, no. He worked with him on a smaller project showcasing his commitment to international cinema. He also signed on for Beautiful Boy, a devastating drama about addiction based on the memoirs of a father and son who lived through the nightmare of methamphetamine dependency. Timothée played Nick Sheff, a young man struggling with addiction, opposite Steve Carell as his desperate father. The role required him to portray the physical and emotional deterioration of addiction with honesty and without vanity. He lost weight, studied the realities of addiction extensively, and delivered a performance that was raw and painful to watch. The film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2018 and earned Timothée further acclaim, though the film itself received mixed reviews. His next major project was The King, a historical drama for Netflix directed by David Mitchell, where Timothée played King Henry V of England. This was a significant departure from his previous contemporary roles, requiring him to take on a classical character and command the screen as a monarch navigating politics and warfare. Film allowed him to show that he could carry a period epic and handle action sequences while maintaining the emotional depth and complexity that had become his signature. Working alongside actors like Joel Edgerton, Robert Pattinson, and Ben Mendelsohn, Timothée held his own and demonstrated versatility that went beyond the sensitive romantic roles that had initially brought him fame. Alongside his acting career, Timothée developed a reputation as one of the most daring and interesting fashion figures in entertainment. His red carpet appearances became events in themselves, with fashion critics and fans eagerly anticipating what he would wear to each premiere or awards ceremony. Unlike many male actors who stuck to safe, traditional tuxedos, Timothée embraced bold choices, vibrant colors, unusual silhouettes, and experimental designers. He wore glittering harnesses, velvet suits in jewel tones, and avant-garde pieces that challenged traditional menswear conventions. His partnership with various high fashion houses, particularly his work as an ambassador for Cartier, and his appearances in campaigns for brands like Haider Ackermann and Stella McCartney, cemented his status as a fashion icon. He appeared on the covers of major fashion magazines including Vogue, GQ, and Vanity Fair, often in editorial spreads that were artistic and conceptual rather than conventionally glamorous. Timothée understood fashion as another form of artistic expression and self-presentation, and he used it to craft an image that was both classic and contemporary, masculine and fluid, serious and playful. What made his fashion choices particularly significant was how they challenged traditional notions of masculinity in Hollywood. Previous generations of leading men had typically presented themselves in conventionally masculine ways, adhering to strict codes of dress and behavior. Timothée's willingness to wear jewelry, to embrace color and pattern, to experiment with silhouettes that defied traditional gender norms, represented a shift in what a leading man could look like and how he could present himself. Young men around the world saw in Timothée permission to express themselves more freely, to see fashion as creative expression rather than rigid conformity. His influence extended beyond high fashion to impact popular culture more broadly. His hairstyles became trends that young men copied. His skinny build, previously seen as a liability in an industry that often preferred more traditionally muscular leading men, became aspirational. He represented a new aesthetic in Hollywood, one that valued artistic sensibility and emotional intelligence over traditional markers of masculinity like physical dominance or stoic toughness. This shift was significant not just for fashion, but for changing cultural attitudes about gender expression and what it meant to be a man in contemporary society. In 2021, Timothée took on arguably his biggest role yet when he starred as Paul Atreides in Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Dune, Frank Herbert's legendary science fiction novel that had been considered unfilmable for decades. This was a massive risk for everyone involved. Previous attempts to adapt Dune had either failed completely or resulted in films that disappointed fans and confused general audiences. The novel was dense, complex, and filled with invented terminology and intricate political and ecological themes. Paul Atreides was the central character, a young man thrust into extraordinary circumstances who must navigate treacherous politics while coming to terms with his own potentially messianic destiny. For Timothée, Dune represented a chance to prove himself in a big-budget science fiction epic, a genre he had not yet tackled. The production was enormous, with shooting taking place in Jordan, Hungary, and Norway, utilizing practical effects and real locations rather than relying entirely on green screen and CGI. The cast was stacked with prestigious actors including Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Zendaya, Jason Momoa, and Javier Bardem. Timothée had to hold the center of this massive production, carrying the emotional core of the story while surrounded by visual spectacle and experienced actors. Villeneuve's faith in Timothée proved justified. Dune was finally released in October 2021 after pandemic-related delays. It was both a critical and commercial success. The film grossed over $400 million worldwide despite being released simultaneously on HBO Max, and it received widespread acclaim for its visuals, sound design, and performances. Timothée's portrayal of Paul balanced vulnerability and strength, showing the character's fear and uncertainty, while also conveying the weight of destiny and responsibility that pressed upon him. He brought humanity to a potentially distant and mythic character, making audiences invest in Paul's journey emotionally rather than simply watching impressive spectacle unfold. The success of Dune accomplished several important things for Timothée's career. It proved that he could open a major blockbuster and carry a big-budget production to commercial success. Demonstrated that his appeal was not limited to art house audiences, but extended to mainstream moviegoers who wanted spectacle and entertainment alongside substance. It also set up Dune Part Two, which would continue Paul's story and further cement Timothée's status as a major movie star capable of anchoring franchise filmmaking. Little independent film actor had successfully transitioned to blockbuster leading man without compromising his artistic credibility or the thoughtfulness of his choices. Throughout his rise to fame, Timothée maintained a level of privacy around his personal life that was increasingly rare in the age of social media and constant connectivity. While he had social media accounts and used them to promote his work and occasionally share glimpses of his interests and personality, he did not overshare or make his private relationships and daily life the focus of his public persona. This discretion created an air of mystery and sophistication that added to his appeal, making him feel like a throwback to an earlier era of movie stars who maintained distance between their public and private selves. His romantic relationships inevitably became subjects of public interest and tabloid speculation. He was linked to various co-stars and other figures in the entertainment industry, with relationships reported with actress Lily Rose Depp and later with Isa Gonzalez, generating significant media attention. Timothée handled this attention with maturity, refusing to confirm or deny reports, not using relationships for publicity, and maintaining respect for the privacy of the people in his life. When photographed with romantic partners, he did not play up to cameras or create scenes for public consumption. This approach earned him respect from fans who appreciated his boundaries and his refusal to treat relationships as content for public entertainment. Timothée also maintained close relationships with family and friends from before his fame, regularly seen spending time with childhood friends and keeping connections to his New York roots. His sister Pauline began acting as well, appearing in the HBO Max series, The Sex Lives of College Girls, and the siblings supported each other's work publicly. His parents remained important figures in his life, with Timothée often speaking warmly about their influence and support. This grounding in family and long-term friendships helped keep him connected to reality in an industry that could easily distort one's sense of self and importance. He used his platform thoughtfully, speaking out on issues he cared about without making every public appearance a political statement. He expressed support for social justice causes, environmental concerns, and LGBTQ rights, doing so in ways that felt genuine rather than performative. He participated in voter registration initiatives and used his social media to amplify important messages, but he did not position himself as a political expert or make activism the center of his public identity. This balance allowed him to use his influence positively while maintaining focus on his work as an actor and artist. One of the most distinctive aspects of Timothee's career has been his consistent choice to work with visionary directors who approach filmmaking as art rather than just commerce. Beyond his collaborations with Luca Guadagnino and Denis Villeneuve, he worked with Wes Anderson on The French Dispatch, a typically quirky and visually stunning Anderson film featuring an enormous ensemble cast. Though his role was relatively small, the opportunity to work with Anderson and be part of his distinctive aesthetic world was clearly something Timothée valued beyond the size of the part. He reunited with Greta Gerwig for her adaptation of Little Women in 2019, playing Laurie, the charming neighbor who loves Jo March but cannot have her. This role required Timothée to embody a character from classic American literature, while also bringing fresh interpretation that justified yet another adaptation of this frequently filmed story. His chemistry with the cast, particularly Saoirse Ronan as Jo, was wonderful, and his portrayal of Laurie's heartbreak and eventual growth was moving and nuanced. Working with Gerwig again demonstrated his loyalty to directors he trusted and his willingness to support female filmmakers with his star power. His second collaboration with Luca Guadagnino came with Bones and All in 2022, a horror romance about young cannibals traveling across America in the 1980s. This was a radical departure from Call Me By Your Name, showing that Timothée and Guadagnino's artistic partnership could explore vastly different tones and genres while maintaining emotional authenticity. Film was dark, strange, and challenging, exactly the kind of project that Timothée seemed to relish despite its commercial risks. His performance alongside Taylor Russell was committed and fearless, tackling the bizarre premise with complete seriousness and finding the humanity in a literally monstrous character. These collaborations revealed a pattern in Timothée's career choices. He prioritized working with directors who had strong visions and distinctive styles, even when it meant taking supporting roles or appearing in films that would not necessarily be box office blockbusters. He seemed to understand that an actor's legacy was built not just on commercial success, but on the body of work they created and the artists they chose to collaborate with. By working repeatedly with directors like Guadagnino, Gerwig, Villeneuve, and Anderson, he was building a filmography that would be studied and appreciated long after box office numbers were forgotten. In 2023, Timothée took on perhaps his most unexpected and potentially risky role when he starred as Willy Wonka in Wonka, a musical prequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, directed by Paul King. This was a significant departure from the serious dramas and science fiction epics that had defined his career. Playing an iconic character previously portrayed by Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp, in a musical no less, could have been a disaster that undermined his credibility as a serious actor. Many questioned whether Timothée could sing and dance, whether he could carry a family-friendly musical, and whether audiences would accept him in such a different type of role. The preparation for Wonka was extensive. Timothée worked with vocal coaches, choreographers, and movement specialists to develop the singing and dancing skills required for the role. He approached the character not as an imitation of previous portrayals, but as a fresh interpretation, imagining Wonka as a young dreamer full of optimism and creativity before the cynicism and eccentricity of his later years. Film was designed to be joyful, colorful, and heartfelt, capturing the magic and wonder of Roald Dahl's creation while telling an original story about Wonka's origins. When Wonka was released in December 2023, it surprised many skeptics by being genuinely delightful and successful, both critically and commercially. Timothée's performance was charming, his singing was more than adequate, and his dancing was energetic and committed. He threw himself into the musical numbers without self-consciousness or irony, fully embracing the fantastical nature of the material. Film grossed over $600 million worldwide, becoming one of the highest-grossing films of Timothée's career and proving that his appeal extended across all age groups and demographics. Success of Wonka was significant because it demonstrated Timothée's range and his willingness to take risks that other actors in his position might have avoided. He could have easily stuck to the serious dramas and science fiction epics that had brought him acclaim, playing it safe and protecting his image as a capital A actor. Instead, he chose to challenge himself in a completely different genre, showing that he did not take himself too seriously and was willing to be joyful and playful on screen. This versatility and willingness to surprise audiences became another defining characteristic of his career approach. The release of Dune Part Two in March 2024 represented another major milestone in Timothée's career. Sequel continued Paul Atreides' journey as he fully embraced his role as a prophesied leader and led the Fremen people in a war against their oppressors. The film was even more epic in scope than the first, with massive battle sequences, deeper exploration of the political and religious themes of Herbert's novel, and Paul's transformation from uncertain youth to powerful, potentially dangerous leader. Timothée had to portray this evolution convincingly, showing how power and destiny could corrupt even someone with good intentions. The film was a massive critical and commercial success, grossing over $700 million worldwide and receiving even stronger reviews than the first installment. Timothée's performance was praised for its complexity and darkness, showing his willingness to let Paul become increasingly morally ambiguous as the story progressed. He did not try to make Paul likable or heroic in conventional ways, but instead portrayed him as someone trapped by forces larger than himself, making terrible choices in service of what he believed was necessary. This mature, nuanced approach to what could have been a straightforward hero's journey demonstrated how much Timothée had grown as an actor. The success of Dune Part Two solidified Timothée's status as one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He had now anchored 2 films in a successful franchise that combined artistic credibility with mainstream appeal, a combination that was increasingly rare in Hollywood's divided landscape of art films versus blockbusters. The fact that the Dune films managed to be both intellectually and aesthetically serious, while also being exciting and entertaining to broad audiences, was exactly the kind of cinema that Timothée seemed most interested in supporting with his involvement. Looking forward, Timothée had numerous projects in development that suggested he had no intention of slowing down or resting on his accomplishments. He was attached to star in a Bob Dylan biopic called A Complete Unknown, directed by James Mangold, a role that would require him to sing and embody one of the most iconic and enigmatic figures in music history. Challenge of playing Dylan, capturing his voice, his mannerisms, and the cultural impact he had while also finding the human being beneath the legend, was exactly the kind of role that Timothée seemed drawn to, difficult and potentially career-defining. At just 29 years old, as of 2024, Timothée Chalamet had already built a remarkable career that most actors would envy regardless of age. He had worked with some of the greatest directors of his generation, delivered performances that would be studied in acting classes for decades, proven himself in genres ranging from intimate drama to science fiction epic to musical fantasy, and become a global icon whose influence extended far beyond film into fashion and culture. What made his achievement even more impressive was how he had managed to do all of this while maintaining artistic integrity and making thoughtful choices rather than simply chasing money or fame. His impact on the film industry and popular culture was multifaceted. As an actor, he had helped redefine what a leading man could be, proving that sensitivity, emotional availability, and intellectual depth were not weaknesses but strengths that could captivate audiences. He had challenged traditional notions of masculinity in Hollywood, showing that a movie star did not need to be physically imposing or emotionally closed off to be compelling and successful. Young actors coming up after him had a new model to look toward, one that valued artistic exploration and emotional honesty over conventional markers of movie star masculinity. His fashion influence had been equally significant, inspiring a generation of young men to see clothing and self-presentation as forms of creative expression rather than rigid conformity to narrow standards. His willingness to take risks on red carpets and in fashion campaigns had opened doors for more experimental and gender-fluid approaches to menswear in mainstream entertainment. He had made it cool to care about fashion, to think seriously about aesthetics, and to use style as a way of communicating identity and artistic sensibility. Perhaps most importantly, Timothée had demonstrated that it was possible to be both commercially successful and artistically serious in contemporary Hollywood. He had not needed to choose between working with visionary auteur directors and appearing in blockbuster franchises. He had shown that audiences were hungry for films that treated them intelligently, that combined spectacle with substance, and that trusted viewers to engage with complex themes and ambiguous characters. His box office success in films like Dune and Wonka proved that there was a massive audience for cinema that aspired to be more than just disposable entertainment. The story of Timothée Chalamet is ultimately a story about choices and integrity. It is about a young man born into a culturally rich environment who fell in love with acting as an art form rather than as a path to fame. It is about years of training and small roles and persistence even when success seemed distant. It is about one breakthrough role that changed everything but could have easily been a one-time success rather than the foundation for a lasting career. It is about the choices made after that breakthrough, the discipline to say no to easy money and safe options in favor of challenging collaborations and risky artistic experiments. It is about building a career and a legacy one thoughtful decision at a time. What distinguishes Timothée from many other actors of his generation is how seriously he takes his craft and how carefully he considers the long-term implications of his choices. He seems to understand that careers are built over decades, that legacy matters more than momentary success, and that the work itself is what endures after the fame and attention fade. He has studied the careers of actors he admires, learning from how they navigated the industry and made choices that allowed them to grow and evolve, rather than becoming trapped by early success or commercial pressures. Journey from that small boy performing in school, plays on the Upper West Side, to the global superstar commanding massive productions is extraordinary. But what makes it truly remarkable is that the success has not changed the fundamental seriousness and thoughtfulness with which he approaches his work. Fame, the money, the adulation, none of it seems to have distracted him from what matters most: the craft of acting, the art of cinema, and the privilege of getting to tell stories that move and challenge audiences. He remains curious, hungry to learn, and willing to take risks even when he could easily coast on his established success. Looking toward the future, the possibilities for Timothée seem limitless. He has already accomplished so much, but he's still young, still developing, still exploring what he's capable of as an artist. The roles he takes in his 30s and 40s will define whether he becomes merely a good actor who had some memorable early successes, or one of the truly great artists of his generation, whose body of work stands as a testament to dedication, intelligence, and integrity. If his choices so far are any indication, he will continue to surprise, to challenge himself and audiences, and to use his platform to support cinema that matters, that aspires to be art rather than just product. The entire story of Timothée Chalamet is still being written, with each new role adding chapters to a career that already feels remarkable, but remains full of potential and possibility. From New York to Italy to the deserts of Iraqis and beyond, his journey has captivated millions and inspired countless young people to pursue their own artistic dreams with seriousness and dedication. He has shown that talent combined with thoughtfulness, that commercial success and artistic integrity, and that fame and authenticity can coexist if you stay true to your values and remember why you started in the first place. This is his story so far, and the best may still be yet to come.